we've learned anything about Nintendo, it's that their games have convoluted timelines. I'm looking at you, Legend of Zelda. This time, we're delving into the lore of Fire Emblem. So, there's no definitive Fire Emblem timeline, but just so you know, Fire Emblem's Jugdral, Archanea, and Valentia are within the same world, even though it's hard to pin down exact dates. Before starting, know that there hasn't been an official Fire Emblem timeline released. And we also can't fit everything into this timeline, but we are hitting most of the big points. 3 of the games in this timeline have never received official English localization either, so some things might get a little wild. And I apologize in advance for the pronunciation of some of the names. I swear, I'm trying my best here. And if you appreciate me tackling this wacky timeline, hey, consider subscribing. Minus 4,000, here be dragons. We're going to base all dates on the Archanean calendar. At around the year minus 4,000, we see that Archanea is inhabited by dragons. And no, they're not your typical dragons that, sleep on piles of gold and eat sheep. We're talking about a society of dragons that have some sort of social hierarchy. There are different types of dragons, but the de facto leaders are the divine dragons. Among them is Naga, a legendary figure in Fire Emblem and the dragon's leader. For thousands of years, things seem to be fine, and that's quite a long time to have normalcy. Minus 1,000, dragons be gone. 3,000 years later, still well before any Fire Emblem game, we see that things aren't going too well for the dragons. For some reason, be it a disease or potent magic, dragons fall ill to stuff like madness and infertility. That, my friends, is not something you want to mess around with. Trust me. And as a result, we see the first of the Manicheets. Manicheets kind of look like humans, minus their, pointed ear. They're basically dragons turned human, but with the aid of a dragon stone, they can temporarily turn back into a powerful dragon form. This seems to be the only way for the dragons to remain alive, or, at least stay sane. But still, some of these dragons didn't turn into Manicheets, and so went mad. That's why players usually end up killing a dragon of some sort at the end of these games in the timeline. Minus 500, Naga dies, Tiki lives. From here, the dragons have an all-out war. I'm, simplifying, of course. We don't really have time to get into the nitty-gritty of the Dragon War. Naga dies for some reason, and before that, she creates Falchion, a sword for humans to use against dragons like the ones she fought in the war. The frenzied ones. Around this time, she also had a daughter named Tiki. But at this point, she's just a baby, although in dragon years, she's probably a lot older than most humans could ever think of living to. Anyway, Naga fears that Tiki is so powerful that she could destroy everything if she went mad like the other dragons. So she basically puts Tiki in a kind of dragon cryostasis. It'll be quite some time until we see Tiki again, but don't worry. She'll make her return eventually. Minus 423, the Genealogy of the Holy War. Finally, we're talking about our first game. And the first game in the timeline is Genealogy of the Holy War. The 4th game in the series, and one that's only available in Japan. Hey Nintendo, you want to get on localizing that, please? Now this game is split into 2 generations, and we begin with Sigurd's story. Sigurd is a royal of Granvale in the continent of Jugdral. And, as things usually go, this period in Fire Emblem's history starts with an invasion. Our young hero, Sigurd, takes up arms with his fellow soldiers. Granvale is fighting a war against Isaac, another kingdom in Jugdral. Hey, it's just what kingdoms do. They love to go to war with each other. Now, while these 2 kingdoms fight, the kingdom of Verdane decides to mix things up and attack the vulnerable Granvale, even though they were allies. As Verdane is invading Ljungby, one of Granvale's territories, Sigurd swoops in with his forces to protect Ljungby. Once he does, an all-out war ensues. And he isn't going to let Verdane get away with their betrayal. They even kidnapped Princess Edain. Sigurd gets promoted to a holy knight and, with newfound purpose, continues his war into Verdane. Sigurd and his group of soldiers, including Finn, Arden, and Quan, go forth. Along the way, Sigurd meets a white-haired woman named Deirdre, his future wife. Sounds like good news for Sigurd, but things are going to take a turn for the worse eventually. Minus 421. Seliph is born. Sigurd and Deirdre have their blue-haired son, Seliph. Around this time, other members of the army fall in love and have children, laying the groundwork for a second generation. Genealogy of the Holy War was the first game in the Fire Emblem series to introduce children of units. And believe me when I say that it's important that you raise them right. There is a right way and a wrong way to have children in this game. I can't believe I just said that, but yeah, here we go. Minus 419. War wages on. Over the next 2 years, Sigurd and the gang have kids, fight against armies, and get embroiled in rebellions and civil wars too. Oh, and Sigurd's wife is kidnapped and gets her mind wiped clean. In this time, Granvale even defeats Isaac. Still, bad things are on the way. At some point, members of Sigurd's army separate for war effort-related reasons. During one of their battles, Quan and Ethelyn, as well as the rest of their group, are ambushed and killed. Bad news for Sigurd, and definitely a sign of things to come. And no, this didn't occur in gameplay, so they're gonna die no matter what the player does. Sigurd and the surviving gang are on their way back to Granvale to meet with a duke named Arvis. To keep things short, Sigurd and his father Byron are wrongfully pinned as the murderers of an important prince of Granvale. And meanwhile, Arvis is being blackmailed by a nefarious dragon-worshipping Loptus cult which knew he had an inferior bloodline and would challenge his legitimacy. So he labels Sigurd and Byron as traitors. When Sigurd returns, Arvis betrays him and sets Sigurd and the rest of his, well, your army aflame, killing them all. The children and Finn are the only ones to survive this massacre in Valhalla, and that's just the first half of the game. You know, we're not even done yet. Minus 404. Thracia, 776. But before the second generation of Genealogy, Fire Emblem 5 takes place. Like Genealogy, Thracia, 776, is a Japanese-only title. It stars Lord Leif, the son of Sigurd's old comrades, the late Quan and Ethlin. Leif is the heir to Manster, a republic under enemy occupation. See, he spent most of his childhood on the run from the Arvis-controlled Granvale, who now controls that entire region. Leif successfully leads a liberation war for Thracia, slaying the nefarious Raydrake in the process. Eventually, Leif becomes the king of Thracia, although we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Remember Seliph, Sigurd's son? See, he's grown up too, and Jugdral is still at war. Minus 403, Generation 2. Seliph now leads an army comprised of the kids of Sigurd's old crew, along with some new faces as well. His goal is to liberate his country from the cruel grasp of Arvis. At this point, Arvis and Deirdre have twins named Julius and Julia. Totally original naming, right? Well, Julius goes on to kill his mother, probably for the naming thing. Anyway, in the same year, Seliph and Leif help each other out in their own wars, but Seliph's main task is to liberate Granvale. His next objective is to put an end to the Loptus cult, which has been pulling the strings from the start. See, they worship Loptus, a dragon from the times of Naga and Tiki, and he's one of the bad ones. The power of this dragon flows through Julius, but with Julia's help, Seliph and his army manage to end it all by slaying him. I guess you could say it's a happy ending. See, Seliph is ruler of the now liberated country, and Leif becomes the ruler of Thracia. Hopefully, these two friends can assure that there's no more fighting. 602, Shadow Dragon. Hundreds of years pass, and now we're on a different continent, Archanea. This is where Prince Marth of Altia lives. You know, the one we all know from Super Smash Bros. Prince Marth, young and still in training, sees his country invaded by Gra and flees at the request of his sister, Elise. With the help of Jagan and other Altian soldiers, Marth successfully flees and spends several years in the ally nation of Talis. 605, back to war. 2 or 3 years later, Marth has grown more experienced. The island of Talis eventually gets invaded by pirates. Yarr! And this marks the beginning of Marth's journey to retake his country of Altia. He is joined by Talis princess Sheeta and recruits many more soldiers. By now, you know the drill. Marth commands an army and retakes castles and defeats enemies. They save Nina, the princess of Archanea, and she grants Marth the Fire Emblem, which, gameplay-wise, can open up chests with powerful artifacts inside. In their battles, they fight Manicheets led by Medius, who is a dragon from thousands of years back. These Manicheets become quite a problem, but could be easily slain with falchion, the weapon used to defeat Medius years ago. See, Marth's father, Cornelius, once wielded the falchion, and now Marth has to retrieve it if he has any hopes of winning. Garnef is the one who has falchion, and he is as ugly as he is evil. He was in cahoots with Medius and his Manicheets too, and he kidnapped Marth's sister. After Tiki wakes up, Garnef captures her and brainwashes her to fight Marth. See, Marth spares her and spends some time with the group. Bantu, her carer, takes her away sometime later. Eventually, Garnef is killed by one of Marth's mage allies with a special tome, and Marth retrieves both falchion and his kidnapped sister. A year later in 605, Marth puts an end to Medius' literal madness and slays him, ending the war. You know, for a time, at least. 606. Shadows of Valentia. Roughly a year or so after Marth's victory in Archanea, we see turmoil in yet another continent in the Fire Emblem universe. This time, we're in Valentia, which is separated from Archanea by a body of water. In Valentia, there are 2 countries called Rigel and Zofia. Rigel is situated in the north, meanwhile Zofia is to the south. They were founded by the dragons Duma and Milla. King Lima of Zofia was betrayed by his advisor, Desai, who colluded with Rigel to stage a rebellion. And so, war erupted again. A pocket of resistance fighters called the Deliverance rose up to reclaim their usurped kingdom from Desai's treachery. So where do our 2 protagonists play into this? Alm and Celica are childhood friends that live in Ram village. Celica was eventually taken to an island monastery devoted to Milla, while Alm remained a humble boy in the village. He was raised by Mycen, an old knight. Now grown up, Alm joins the Deliverance after they come to his village looking for new recruits. At the same time, Celica departs from the monastery, seeking Milla's aid for failing crops. Two protagonists go on two different journeys, but they're destined to reunite. Alm quickly becomes the leader of the resistance, like a true badass. Celica and her companions fight pirates and zombies on our way to Zofia's castle. Yes, there are zombies and other undead enemies, but don't cross your fingers about using your fallen teammates. They, unfortunately, stay dead. Alm and Celica eventually meet at Zofia's castle, but they're conflicted. She doesn't want Alm to take over Rigel and slay King Rudolph. Alm is like, nah, and wants to go anyway. Celica leaves him on bitter terms, but she's gonna go to Milla's temple either way. Along the way, Celica encounters the White Wing sisters named Paula, Catria, and Est, three Pegasus knights who fought with Marth in his war a year prior. Est gets kidnapped by some pirates somehow, and the others go to rescue her. Alm makes it to Rudolph, slaying the king's forces. He even eventually kills Rudolph himself. But it's a bittersweet victory. Turns out that Rudolph is Alm's father, and not the true bad guy after all. Duma, a dragon, was going mad, as they do. It was foretold that Alm and Celica, who bore special marks on their hands, would be the ones to end Duma's madness and unify all of Valentia. Rudolph had planned for this unification from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Celica makes it to the temple and finds that Milla is gone and is actually at Duma Tower. Milla is already dead, though, slain by Falchion. Oh yeah, by the way, there's actually two Falchions. This one is in Valentia. In this tower, Jeddah, a priest of Duma and a man as ugly and evil as Garnef, threatens the lives of Celica's friends. He forces her to go with him and traps her in a prison under Duma Tower. Alm eventually finds Celica, but her mind is corrupted. Milla, who is probably more of a ghost than a dragon at this point, compels Alm to take Falchion out of the dragon's corpse and kill Celica. Milla's last remaining power is used to bring Celica back to life and free her of the mind control. Their last task is to kill Duma and end this madness once and for all. And hey, our heroes succeed and we get another happy ending. Alm and Celica marry and unify the country, fulfilling Rudolph's wishes and establishing long-lasting peace. 607. New Mystery of the Emblem. We turn our eyes back to Marth and Archanea, 2 years after his victory over Medius. Marth's old ally, Hardin, is the king of Archanea and decides to spoil all their good relations. He orders Marth to invade Grust, but Marth is like, no way, man. And so Hardin labels Marth a traitor, just like what happened to our old friend Sigurd hundreds of years ago. As it turns out, Garnef, who should have stayed dead, is back. He corrupted Hardin and made him all, angry and evil. Medius? Yeah, he's back too, revived by Garnef. So we've got another big war in our hands. Once again, it's up to Marth and his new friend Chris to fight and save the world. Who's Chris? Well, that's up to you, the player. Chris is your own avatar. Think of them kind of like the player character from Fire Emblem Awakening. With the help of old allies like Tiki and the White Wings, Marth kills all three of our bad dudes. Marth and Sheeta marry, and he goes down in history as the Hero King. This time, he rules over Archanea, while Hardin sits 6 feet under. 2609, Awakening. 2,000 years later, and not much has changed technologically. Like seriously, it's been 2 millennia and people are still clinking and clanking swords together. You'd think with all the wars, somebody would have figured out how to make gunpowder. At least the political climate is different. Archanea is now called Elise, and one of its countries is called Elise too, kind of like an, Australia situation. Elise is ruled by Marth's descendants, Exalt Emerin, Crom, and Lissa. Across the sea is Valentia, renamed Valm after Alm from Shadows of Valentia. Alm and Celica's descendant Walhart runs things over there. The game starts with Crom leading the Shepherds, a group of soldiers who protect Elise. One day, they find a mysterious person named Robin. This is the player's character. Robin has no memory, but quickly becomes a valuable asset to the group as a tactician. Around this time, some spooky zombie guys called the Risen start attacking Elise. They're part of the army of the Grimleal, another nefarious cult that worships another evil dragon, Grima. At one point, a mysterious masked person named Marth appears to fight against the Risen with the Shepherds. The neighboring kingdom of Plagia starts a war with Elise in order to gain the Fire Emblem, which has remained in the possession of Marth's descendants since he saved the day way back when. The Fire Emblem's power would be a threat to Grima. Of course, things don't go as planned, and the king of Plagia is killed, but not before kidnapping and causing the death of Exalt Emerin. Still, the war is far from over. About 2 years later, Walhart starts a campaign to conquer the continent of Elise. Now they need to fight the descendants of Alm? Great. So the Shepherds succeed and kill Walhart with the help of neighboring kingdom Regna Ferox and masked Marth. The team learns that Marth is actually Crom's daughter, Lucina. She was born about a year prior, but she's traveled back from the future to stop what happened in her timeline. The death of pretty much everyone at the hands of Grima and the Grimleal. The only survivors were the children of Crom's army, and she wants to prevent this future. She's basically the Trunks of Fire Emblem. Sword and all. At some point on their journey, they meet Tiki. She's still kicking, but she looks like she's only about 20 years old, and not 2,000. Wouldn't it be nice to be a dragon? She says the only way to stop the Grimleal is to remake the Fire Emblem with 5 spheres. There are 2 choices for the player to end the game with, but I like to think that the real one is where Robin sacrifices themselves to actually kill Grima. In the other ending, Chrom seals Grima away, but the seal only lasts for 1,000 years. Kinda, feels like you're just sweeping the problem under the rug. Robin even comes back after sacrificing themselves, so it's all good. And if Grima comes back in 3 houses, then hey, we'll know which ending is canon. 3 houses might just be on a whole different timeline altogether. That would take the count up to 4 different timelines in the Fire Emblem series. And let me know if you want me to cover any of the other ones. I know the lore can be really tough to pin down, but I love Fire Emblem all the same. It's just a game, but it's got some of the heaviest lore out there. And from indie to AAA, we love the games you play. I've been your host, Marcus, and if you want to boost your affinity with us, subscribe to the Leaderboard. That way, we'll both be stronger.